Hey guys, it's David G back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing a new series. Now, a lot of people have been doing this, so I just thought I'd try it out myself. The 10 Things WWE Wants You to Forget About series. So I'm going to start this one off by doing 10 Things WWE Wants You to Forget About LITA. LITA's Number 10, she was CM Punk's girlfriend and date at Hall of Fame ceremonies. Lita's dating history in wrestling hasn't really been a secret to fans. Whether we want to know about who she has been with at certain times in her life, it's been pretty easy to figure it out. She was with Matt Hardy in the early 2000s for many years. Then she cheated on him with his good friend Edge. More on that later. And then, after she retired from WWE in 2006, she dated CM Punk. While we don't know exactly when their relationship was on and when it was off, it did appear to be pretty serious. The last couple of years, LITA was featured on CM Punk's DVD documentary from a few years ago. Although it didn't say she was his girlfriend at the time, even though she was, the two kept a low profile in the public as much as they could, although they did step out together at the 2013 Hall of Fame. When Lita's bestie, Trish Stratus, was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2013. Lita was seated in the front row right beside her boyfriend, CM Punk. They were at other Hall of Fame ceremonies too, but in 2013 they appeared on camera a number of times. It was never really acknowledged by WWE. Now that Punk is basically ignored by WWE, it's not like they would ever bring it up. A year later, Lita was inducted into WWE's Hall of Fame. Punk left the company months earlier. His girlfriend, now wife, AJ Lee, probably wasn't there either, even though she had talked about how Lita was her idol growing up. There's even video proof of that too. The whole situation is pretty awkward. Then again, that's a good way to sum up a lot of relationships in pro wrestling. Number 9. She started with SSR Rios, not the Hardy Boys. A lot of fans probably think that Lita started her WWE career with Jeff and Matt Hardy. But that's not true. After her brief run in ECW and then training in WWE, she was paired up with a wrestler named SSR Rios. He actually started in WWE as Aguila, but they gave him a new gimmick and paired her with him. He was a high flyer, so she fit with him because she was very athletic too. The alliance with SSR Rios didn't last too long. It started in February 2000 when Lita debuted, and it was done by May 2000, when Rios was flirting with some of the Godfather's hoes. So that was the end of that. After Rios attacked Lita by hitting a powerbomb on her, Lita was saved by the Hardys, and she was paired with them from that point on. It lasted for a number of years. At least Lita mentioned him at the Hall of Fame, but it's not like WWE mentioned it during her induction video. Number 8. She went on a date with Dean Malenko and beat him in a match. They loved doing odd couple stories in WWE. Since Lita was Team Extreme with the Hardy Boys, she was known for being very energetic and having fun. Dean Malenko classic pro wrestler that didn't have a lot of charisma. That led to WWE developing a storyline where Malenko was infatuated with Lita so much so that he wanted to take her out on a date. Eventually they had a match that Dean won that led to him taking her out on a date. When they had the date, there were some poorly acted scenes in the locker room, in a restaurant, and even in a hotel. The image of Lita in lingerie was very nice, but it didn't end up in happiness for Malenko because Matt Hardy showed up and kicked his ass. On February 19th, 2001 edition of Raw, Lita faced Malenko again, and this time she was able to win the match, thanks to Matt and Jeff Hardy's help. That led to Hardy making out with her too, so that's when fans knew they were more than friends. There aren't too many women in WWE history that beat a male wrestler, but Lita was one of them. These days, they would never book a male versus female match because it doesn't really fit under the PG rules of 2014 WWE, now 2015. Number 7. She was fired by Eric Bischoff because she refused to pose nude. She really had a neck injury, though. Lita had a few major injuries during her WWE career. The neck injury she suffered was the most significant one, and the unique thing about it was that it didn't even happen in a wrestling ring. It happened on the Dark Angel television show in April of 2002. She ended up having neck surgery that caused her to miss over a year of action. When she was close to coming back from the injury, she appeared on the April 21st, 2003 edition of Raw. Eric Bischoff pushed for her to pose nude in Playboy like Tori Wilson did. She admired Tori for doing it, but she didn't want to do it. Bischoff called her worthless. He suggested that she pose nude in Playboy to save her job. She said no. So he fired her. There were a lot of angels in 2002 to 2003 that were really controversial, like the awful Katie Vick story and hot lesbian action segments. This one was forgotten in a lot of ways, but it was really bad to see a guy fire a woman because she wouldn't pose nude. There's heel heat, and then there's being too over the top. That's what this was. Definitely. 4 months after this angle, Lita returned to the ring and was rehired in storyline by Steve Austin. If you're wondering, she never did pose nude in Playboy. Sorry, fellas. Number 6. The Mickie James story with Trish Stratus was originally designed for Lita. It was one of the best and most famous women's storylines ever, as Mickie James started in WWE in late 2005 as an obsessed fan of Trish Stratus that eventually went crazy and turned on her, leading to an epic showdown at WrestleMania 22 in 2006 that Mickie won. Years later, Mickie revealed in interviews that it was actually Lita that the story was designed for. Mickie came up with the storyline with Lita in mind because she knew her from when she was coming up in the business, and Lita would go to shows. They were good friends while Mickie didn't know Trish that well prior to their angle starting. Here's how Mickie explained it in a 2013 interview. I wrote this storyline of a super crazed fan. I originally wrote it with LITA in mind, because I knew LITA pretty well. I really didn't know Trish, then I heard that Vince had read this idea. I wrote like 18 weeks of TV, and he really liked it. Perhaps the story would have worked with LITA, but Trish did a great job with it too. Plus, LITA was busy towards the end of 2005 and early 2006 with her story involving Edge, so it probably wouldn't have worked anyway. They did end up feuding in 2006 with Mickie beating LITA in her last match. Number 5. Kane may have raped her in storyline. The story between Kane and LITA in 2004 was one of the most awkward things in wrestling history. Kane was unmasked by that point, so in some ways he got more confident with the ladies, and he became a man that was infatuated with LITA. Here's how LITA explained the whole thing during her Hall of Fame speech. To me and says he's going to beat up my boyfriend unless I don't carry the seed of his demon spawn. Then he proceeds to beat up my boyfriend. Well, I do carry his demon spawn, kidnaps me, and puts me in the boiler room. She didn't say Matt Hardy's name, by the way. In other words, she didn't want to have sex with Kane. She only did it to prevent him from beating up Matt Hardy. It's not like WWE openly said that Kane raped her or anything like that, but that's certainly what was insinuated by this angle. She also had to marry Kane because he beat Matt Hardy in a match, because apparently the WWE writers think that it's a legal stipulation to lead to marriage only in wrestling. Number 4, that lost baby saga leading to Snitsky punting a baby doll. There was more to the crazy angle that LITA had with Matt Hardy, Kane, and even a newcomer named Gene Snitsky. It's hard to remember all the weird things involved in that storyline because of how it started, how it evolved, and even how it ended. LITA was pregnant in the storyline, and we didn't know if the baby was Matt Hardy's or Kane's. But then LITA told us that it belonged to Kane. It's actually a surprise that they didn't bring in Maury Povich for the "Who is the baby's father?" big reveal, although that was probably a good thing for us viewers. Kane had a match against Snitsky, who was an unknown at that point. Kane placed a chair over Snitsky's head and was going to jump on it. LITA took the chair off Snitsky because she didn't think it was necessary. Snitsky got back to his feet, hit Kane in the back with the chair, and Kane fell on top of her. Later, it was revealed that LITA lost the baby. After that, the story became even more ridiculous as Snitsky became a regular that said, "It wasn't my fault," as a catchphrase. Later, he ended up punting a baby doll just to show that he really was a jerk. By the end of the storyline, LITA ended up legitimately falling in love with Kane. After he got revenge on Snitsky, Kane was cheered for his actions. Way to reward a rapist character. LITA then she turned on him, and even thanks Snitsky for killing the baby. Yep. Thanks Snitsky for killing the baby. That's what LITA said. Thank you for killing Kane's demon spawn. Number 3, she was supposed to win the women's title at WrestleMania 21. LITA's rivalry with Trish Stratus was the best of her career. On the December 6, 2004 edition of Raw, LITA beat Trish, the heel in the feud, for the women's title. In the main event of Raw, it was the first and only time that two women would main event Raw in a singles match for the women's title. That was one of her career highlights as LITA won the women's title for the second time. They had a women's title rematch at New Year's Revolution on January 9, 2005, with Trish scheduled to win back the title. She did, but it didn't go exactly as planned. LITA jumped on Trish outside the ring, but when she landed, she ended up tearing the ACL in her left knee and was unable to complete the match as planned. To her credit, LITA did work through the injury for a couple of minutes before they decided to bring it home, and Trish won the women's title as scheduled. Due to the injury, LITA was out of action for WrestleMania 21 at the time of her injury. There were reports that said she was scheduled to win the women's title back from Trish. It made sense considering their epic match in the Raw main event. Instead, WWE had to go with Trish defending the title against Christy Hemme, who really didn't deserve a WrestleMania match at that point. It's a shame LITA got hurt because we never did get LITA versus Trish in a singles match at WrestleMania. They were part of a triple threat at WrestleMania 18, but it would have been better in a singles at WrestleMania 21. Number 2, she got beat up by men often, including Austin and Triple H. LITA wasn't afraid to mix it up with the boys. It's one of the things a lot of people admired, especially the female fans that looked up to her because she wasn't afraid to put her body on the line. You probably remember some of the bumps she took at shows like WrestleMania 17 when Edge speared her outside the ring, or jumping on Mick Foley's back during his WrestleMania 22 match with Edge that led to going over the top to the floor during his famous clothesline spot. There were a number of times when the Dudley Boys dropped her with their 3D finisher too. The most violent beating that LITA fell victim to happened when two of WWE's biggest names ever beat her up on the April 9, 2001 edition of Raw. Following a win by LITA and the Hardys over Austin, Triple H, and Stephanie, LITA pinned Stephanie. LITA was attacked after the match. Triple H started it by hitting LITA in the back of the head with a forearm shot. Then Triple H gave her a pedigree. The Hardy Boys tried to save her, but Austin destroyed them with chairs. Then Austin turned his attention to LITA, who covered Matt. Austin hit her with a chair 9 times. He even hit the Stone Cold Stunner on her too. Jim Ross was going crazy saying how awful this was, and he was right. None of this stuff would ever air on WWE programming today, nor would even be mentioned. They are strongly against having women getting attacked by men, and really, they should have been against it back then too. Number 1, live sex celebration with Edge. This is one of those things where it might be something that WWE doesn't want us to forget. But it's also a moment that is never going to be duplicated considering the PG environment that the WWE has built in 2014-2015. Do you really think WWE would ever have a live sex celebration on Raw again? I seriously doubt it. There was a bed in the ring on the January 9th, 2006 edition of Raw as Edge and Lita took part in the celebration after Edge won the WWE title from John Cena. It was a very risky segment that was definitely different for those of us watching at home. They kissed, they undressed to their underwear, and they went under the covers to do you know what until Ric Flair and later John Cena interfered. Lita ended up getting dressed and took an attitude adjustment or FU at the time from Cena. Apparently he likes foreplay anyway. Let's not go there. When I wrote the Things to Forget article about Edge earlier this month, there were people that pointed out that WWE put this segment on a Best of Raw DVD release after the 15th anniversary of the show, and it also aired on WWE Network recently without cutting anything out, aside from Lita's breast showing up. It was one of the most famous segments in Raw history. Of course, it did good in the ratings, but it's not something that WWE is ever going to repeat again or show in some video package. Once again, it was not something that was mentioned at Edge or Lita's Hall of Fame induction. Great moments usually are, forgettable ones aren't. Who do you want to see next in this series? As always, AVG saying peace. Please like, comment, subscribe. Comment on who you want to see next. I have a few planned, but put some comments there on who you want to see 10 things. As always, AVG saying peace.